The Best of Our Knowledge explores topics on learning, education, and research. Coming up, 4 years ago, Columbia University launched the Columbia Climate School. We'll speak with Climate School Dean Dr. Jeffrey Shaman about the school's newest program. And a New York Congressman wants to place new restrictions on mobile sports betting. We'll learn how sports betting affects student athletes. I'm Lucas Willard, host of The Best of Our Knowledge. You're listening to The Best of Our Knowledge. I'm Lucas Willard. 4 years ago, Columbia University launched the Columbia Climate School. The school recently launched a new MS in climate science. To learn more about the school and the program, I spoke with Climate School Dean Dr. Jeffrey Shaman.
About 5 or 6 years ago, then President Lee Bollinger started to really posit the question and move forward with some conversations with faculty, with prominent people out there in the field, that was it right now to have a climate school, to coalesce around the specific issue of climate with a real focus on it, given the problems associated with climate change and the amount of work that's being done on climate change and sustainability at the university already, but to bring it together into something that actually offered formal academic programs and built out a formal faculty. And so a task force was set up, and that task force concluded it was a good idea. And after we went through the usual administrative approvals and the Senate approval from the University Senate, we've established a school. One of the programs that already existed, one of those partner programs, which is a Master's of Arts in Climate and Society, it's a 12-month, one-year program at the master's level, was moved from Arts and Sciences into the Climate School, and it became the Climate School's first degree program. And it had been a degree that generated about 20 to 30 students per year. When it was moved into the climate school, it started to increase. And it's increased now where this year we have 121 students in that program, and this is our fourth year with it.
As climate change becomes more familiar to people and more Americans in particular are feeling the effects of climate change personally, has interest grown in the climate school and this advanced degree program as well?
Absolutely. And I think it's also something that has a number of other factors. We see that there are job opportunities out there for it. Lots of corporations, if not almost all of them, have sustainability officers. Government organizations, departments of public health, departments of sanitation, other works, economic development councils bring in people who understand the climate system and sustainability and how it interacts with their sectors. There's need within nonprofit sectors for it. So there are actually a wealth of opportunities, and students are not, they're not ignorant of this. They're quite savvy to it. And one of the things they want to know when they're coming into a master's program is am I going to be able to get a job based on the degree and the training that I've gained by going through this educational program? And one of the things that we've been able to say is that actually, yes, and it's really burgeoning. So we're actually hitting a very critical sweet spot in which the job market has really started to expand. If you will, it's almost exponentiating. And our students are going into all those sectors. They go into government, they go into academia, they go into corporate, they go into NGOs. They're really moving into a diversity of sectors. So the students are very interested in this issue, and there's a difference in between the youth and their acceptance of climate change and maybe some people who are older where there may be some greater doubt or resistance or lack of training and understanding as to why this is a palpable, real problem. The youth tend to recognize that more. But the critical other piece is that there's something they can do with the degree. It's not just something that satisfies their curiosity.
Dr. Shaman, with this MS in Climate program, are there any ways that students can help make this program their own, if you will? Are there areas where they can specialize or sort of shape their education in this program?
Absolutely. So our students all come in and have to take the same core curriculum, and that's in climate dynamics and thermodynamics, understanding the climate system. It's about mitigation. It's about adaptation and resilience and the policies that go into making us stronger and more buffered against what's happening with the changing climate system. They have to learn about climate communication. They have to learn about justice issues and the economics of what's going on and driving our policies and our actions at a governmental level. But at the same time, all students in that MS program have to, at a minimum, at least take another advanced certificate in a separate degree discipline, if you will. So out of the gate, we're offering 3 of these advanced certificates. One is on food security. So they would get deep understanding in what's going on with our food systems. How are they changing under the pressures that we see associated with climate change, associated with use of fertilizers, associated with changing temperatures and humidity, associated with population growth. Another one of the certificates is in advanced analytics. So to learn more about analytics that they can use, the types of quantitative approaches that you could use to address a range of critical questions that are being impacted by climate change. And the third is disaster management. It's on how is this actually playing out into disasters? What are the policies? How do we make people resilient? What are the better response protocols? And how do we put ourselves in positions where we don't have to have as many responses going on because communities and society is better buffered against it. There's also alternatives where we can offer dual degrees, and one of the ones that we're going to be launching with our School of Architecture is one on the built environment. What are the implications for the built environment, in particular urban environments, associated with climate change, and how do they intersect? So the idea is that we're training people who are not just experts in climate science and the implications of climate change and what that means for sustainable stewardship of our planet, but also what it means for a particular sector. And over time, we are intent on expanding the number of these offerings through more advanced certificates and more of those dual master's program alignments that we can build out.
So do you think that Columbia's model could possibly be replicated? And is there even a need for other schools to pick up the mantle and establish their own, if not programs, degrees or schools dedicated to climate? Is this something that you think is needed across the country, around the world?
Well, as much as I would like to say that Columbia is fantastic and a great place where students should apply and that you have to come here to learn about it, this is an all hands on deck problem. The problems associated with climate change and sustainability are not going to be solved by any one sector, any one institution, any one educational entity. And we really need an enormous cadre of people entering the workforce who have deep understanding of this and to integrate it into policy, into law, into governance, into finance, into the architecture, into public health thinking, into all the types of sectors that we have out there. And that's much more than what any one program can accomplish. There are other schools out there that have built out environmental programs, and they're moving in the direction of what I described for you in our Masters of Science in Climate program. And there are others that are building out sustainability programs. I'm sure others are also starting to think about more specifically aligning climate programs, if you will, or climate and society programs. But this is not something that Columbia should be doing on its own, nor is it. And it's something where we need a lot of really good thinking, thoughtful people coming into this space if we're going to actually transition society the way we need to and buffer civilization against some of the problems that we're going to have happen to us in the foreseeable future.
Are there any plans for Columbia to partner with other colleges or universities on this program as climate change increasingly becomes an issue and is having real-world effects? In addition to the programs that you outlined, food security, disaster management, climate analytics, and climate extremes, and then also engineering with the built environment, do you think there's room for collaboration with other institutions in the future as well?
Absolutely. And we're actually already pursuing that in a number of ways. Educationally, we're looking into establishing dual degrees, but instead of being with such as our School of Architecture here at Columbia, maybe with a school of policy at another institution overseas. We've been in talks, and I'm not going to give the names right now, with a number of these institutions of establishing these kinds of international dual degree programs where students come here for a time and take our courses, and they also go to this other institution overseas and take courses there, and they wind up with a dual degree from both. Again, it would marry maybe climate and policy, where we would deliver the climate and they would deliver the policy education in that instance. We also, because this is a problem that is large, there's also an ability for schools to actually major research universities to contribute in the research and in the practice and implementation space. So a lot of our students come in and they want real world opportunities. They want capstones, they want internships, they want research opportunities. They want the ability to actually interact with the actors who are going to be ultimately employing them. And that may be the World Bank, that can be the White House, that could be the EPA, that can be an international organization, that can be a community organization, that could be a corporate entity. They want to have those opportunities. And a lot of that we are building out as well right now, so that those are not only baked in as student opportunities, but they're ways that our researchers, our faculty, can actually engage and help build out solutions in certain spaces with sectors in society broadly.
In the more broad conversation about higher education, we often hear about how schools are having to introduce new programs or rethink higher ed as students change. And, there's a lot of debate about the return on investment, if you will, with higher education and declining enrollments, and some smaller liberal arts colleges are closing. It seems to be a pattern. But to you, is this program, the climate school at Columbia, is this a model that is sort of an example of how schools can adapt to not only meet the challenges of the present and the future, but also to keep students interested and engaged and have their hands in some real world meaningful work?
That's a really interesting, and I would even argue nuanced question, because there are some challenges that are taking place within higher education, as you alluded to, and there are real difficulties being felt among some of the smaller tier institutions out there. In some sense, at Columbia University, we're a little buffered from that because it's a preeminent institution. It's very old. It has major research funding, and it's very esteemed for its students, and we get a high caliber of student in there. Despite that, though, it is imperative that any institution change and be forward-looking in the types of courses it offers. And that's not to be reactive. That's to be actually deliberate, to be intentional, to actually look at what is needed out there, to have the faculty and researchers who comprise your institution sit down and say, what do we think our students really need to know? And to actually reach out to the broader sector and say to employers, what are the types of skills you think they need to know? And you have to find something in the middle, because no one entity has all the answers. But it is critical that you start offering new curriculum. And that curriculum can be embedded within existing programs, or it can be a new program such as what this is. And this example here really speaks to a moment now. And again, I'm going to refer to the fact that there is demand in the job sector for people with the type of training that we're offering here at the climate school and in our degree programs. That is the thing that is the major attractor, because students are interested in ROI. They want to be able to come in and learn a set of skills that's going to place them well so that they can get a better job or a more interesting job or a higher paying job. And they also want to have actual practical experience through capstones and internships that's going to expose them to the types of questions and the types of work that they would be doing in particular job sectors, so that they can have that exposure and make a more informed decision when they go out on the job market.
So, Dr. Shaman, is there anything else that you wanted to highlight about the climate school at Columbia that we missed?
I would like to highlight the fact that we have fantastic students. We really have. And I know that's crowing a bit, but they really have just shown such an amazing curiosity and passion for this topic. They come from all over the country and all over the world. They go out and they work in a whole range of sectors. And what has me most excited is that because the problems of climate change and sustainability are so large, it can be kind of overwhelming. And even an institution like Columbia, which has a massive a critical mass of faculty and researchers working in the climate and sustainability space, there's only a limited amount that we can contribute in our corner of the world. But if we're actually educating students and graduating really well-trained, smart, creative thinkers who are going to come up with solutions and ideas to the problems that we're facing in the sphere of climate change and sustainability, the ones that neither you or I would think of, that excites me. And it's exciting to know that if we do this over 10, 20 years, we're exponentiating our impact because we're seeding the world with people who are passionate about this, who have deep understanding of the issues, and who are intent on actually making a difference. And so for me, that's the most exciting component of it all.
Dr. Jeffrey Shaman is Dean of the Columbia Climate School at Columbia University. I'm Lucas Willard. Mobile sports betting is becoming increasingly popular. In New York, mobile gaming was legalized in January 2022. Since then, however, some officials say there have been harmful effects on both bettors and athletes. As the best of our knowledge's Madeline Reynolds reports, sports betting was the topic of a recent congressional roundtable held at Siena College in Loudonville.
Siena College student-athletes and coaches sat down with New York Congressman Paul Tonko about his Safe Bet Act. The Democrats' legislation would place restrictions on advertisements and artificial intelligence technology in mobile wagering. Tonko says the legislation is needed to protect the welfare of athletes and the people who are wagering on college sports.
Safe Bet Act is an effort to take a known addictive product and provide the restrictions for public well-being and avoiding harm that can be associated with chasing losses. The Supreme Court in 2018 gave the green light to mobile sports gambling, that opportunity to the states. In so doing, they allowed the states to do what they want, and they said if necessary, Congress should step in. I think the Wild West environment, where we have a known addictive product, needs to be made safer. That product needs to be made safer. It's the addiction, one of the addictions that is included in the DSM-5 manual, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, that is the reach to for clinicians and the medical community to respond to the needs of mental health. In that listing of disorders, mental health disorders, they include gambling, but it doesn't have a necessary insurance attachment. And if we're taking people, in this case, many young adults, before the brain is fully developed, we're taking an audience of potential addiction and growing it, right? In days past, you had to go to a track or to an OTB parlor or a casino. You have the phone in your hand. That's your connection to the gambling situation. So we should anticipate that there's a larger audience that's involved with the gambling exercise. And for those with the genomic makeup that can fall into addiction, chasing the losses, we should assume that absolute number will grow. And so this is a preventative bit of restriction that will not outlaw mobile sports gambling, but take that known addictive product and make it safer.
To get a coach's perspective on how sports betting is affecting student athletes, I spoke with Siena's head women's basketball coach, Terry Prim.
I want to know from you, has sport betting affected your team personally? What have you seen with your players?
It's interesting you say that because we haven't had one discussion about it up to this point. But I can certainly see how the rabbit hole of issues that sports betting may cause may end up in the mental health realm. So I'm very excited about exploring this to see better ways that we can protect our student athletes. But we talk about this all the time. Our program's on the rise. We're putting forth a lot of effort behind making us a lot more visible. So, of course, I do anticipate there being a little bit more attention to it. So maybe we can get ahead of this thing.
And have you seen anything online targeted towards your team in a negative aspect of maybe threats, maybe some of the things that were mentioned in the roundtable like DMs, or have you heard any conversations about that?
No, I mean, Valencia's had some DMs about performance, and she wasn't sure if it was sports betting related. But of course, I'm a big podcast person. So listening to these various sports podcasts for about a year and a half now, I remember when the advertisement started. And so to be in this conversation today, it's been pretty fascinating to make the connection between the two now. So definitely there's been an increase in the promotion of it, and now I'm going to be a lot more aware about it.
What would you like to see from Congress to make your team maybe feel more safe?
Well, definitely getting in front of the potential harassment. You know, I was thinking a lot about harassment laws in general and how that's being handled whenever it's a non-sports situation, that maybe there needs to be some legislation in place to address it from a sports perspective. But certainly maybe it's such a wild card issue with our student athletes that maybe it should not be allowed at this point, considering that it's pretty tough to manage when it's professional sports. So I'm probably leaning more towards that because it protects our students.
And I'm curious, has sport betting maybe turned off or maybe intimidated potential players from the sport due to the pressure of it and all the negativity?
Good question. I don't know, because sports presents its own set of pressures in general. And of course, with there being more attention to sports in terms of the NIL space, name, image, and likeness, and the deals that college athletes are receiving, obviously there's a lot more attention towards that. So I don't know if the pressure of sports betting is outweighing the potential benefits of being a really great athlete. So I don't know if we're going to see that, but I do think that because of the presence of it and the growing presence of it, there definitely needs to be some safeguards.
Have you seen people's behaviors, and people meaning sport bettors, behaviors maybe grow more worse post-pandemic?
You know what's interesting about that? I have heard some of the professional athletes talk about engaging with fans, and I always thought that was pretty interesting that a fan would decide what to do with their money, but then almost third-party blame the athlete who had no idea of the transaction. So, yeah, I mean, there's no limit on these types of activities at this point. There's no laws in place. So, yeah, I'm just happy we haven't had to deal with it directly up to this point, and hopefully there'll be legislation in place by the time we are as big as we want to be, because we have big plans for our program. Hopefully there's some things in place that would kind of protect us from that type of activity.
While Prim says teams at Siena College are just beginning to discuss sports betting, athletes say they've noticed an impact, especially online. To get her perspective, I asked Siena's women's basketball player Valencia Fontanelle-Pawson the same questions I posed to Coach Prim.
Has sport betting affected you personally?
Personally, I've had some harassments in my DMs, but it's just easy to block those with the swipe of a button, so that's how I've gotten rid of those.
Does sport betting put additional pressure on you as a player?
Personally, I know that it's going on, but we really, as student athletes, need to mentally be sharp and on point and just focus on the sport. And I know it's easier said than done for some people. Some people take words a little more harder than others, and we need to understand that, certain people are not going to react the same to threats or harassment. So we kind of need to take that into account, but personally, I'm just focused on winning a championship, so I kind of use that for fuel.
Now, has there been anything said about you or your team online that you've seen that has been negative, maybe by sport bettors?
100%. It just gets deleted, though. A lot of stuff does happen in private, as we were saying in the conference before. A lot of people are just they're more comfortable acting more cruel in private than in public. So I see when there's, comments online, it's more harshful in the DMs instead, which, it stinks that happens, but you kind of just have to block it out.
Right. Can you give me any specifics about maybe what you've seen, like what type of harassment or threat that they're making?
I'll start with just friends, personally, on the deeper level, just getting death threats to the max. I think that is completely unacceptable to just I'll hit you with my car. It's insane. There's just so many different forms of harassment that goes on, or just like if you don't get 2 more rebounds, like I'm losing my family fortune, stuff like that. So that's the more deeper level onto that. Me personally, it's just like either you suck or, just like stuff I really can't say right now. But, it's not to the kill yourself level, which is insane. And I just can't even believe that the love of money just goes that deep that you have to say that and spread that hate. I just think it's completely unacceptable. So,
And what do you hope Congress will do to make you feel more safe as a college athlete?
I hope Congress will really take a look at the advertising that is being targeted toward this generation, because through the media these days, it's really easy to access, a certain demographic, especially with college students being young and being online and in the media. It's just so much more easy and accessible to, target these younger generations.
We know that college students do bet on games of any level, including college level. Do you know anybody in your personal circle, maybe classmates, that do bet on college sports, and how does that make you feel?
Personally, I do know a few students who bet on parlays and stuff like that, but just even walking around campus and, walking behind people or standing in line, you hear, hey, what'd you get on your parlay? Oh, I hope that, so-and-so breaks their leg because they didn't complete their parlay. And then I'm just standing there thinking that is ridiculous. Like, I can't believe that, again, the love of money, oh, you want to win so bad, like you're wishing that upon somebody. So it's definitely around campus and definitely out here in the world. So we got to watch out for that.
Have you ever bet on games before? And are there any certain rules that you have to abide by as a college athlete?
Personally, I've never bet on games. I do believe that there's rules in place, and I don't want to find those rules out. So I just distance myself from gambling as a whole. I think it's just a slippery slope at this point. So, once you put that $10 in and you lose it, you want to gain it back. Okay, that's 20, that's 30. Soon it's your whole mortgage, and I just don't think that's the path for me personally. So,
Valencia Fontanelle-Pawson is a basketball player at Siena College. Reporting for the best of our knowledge, I'm Madeline Reynolds.
This has been The Best of Our Knowledge, episode 1778. The Best of Our Knowledge is a national production of WAMC Northeast Public Radio. Thanks to associate producer Madeline Reynolds. The latest on all National Productions programs is available via the Airwaves newsletter and our flagship station's website, WAMC.org. Until next time, I'm Lucas Willard.